A regular Friday morning. Natalie Brooks adjusted her reading glasses and scanned through the morning schedule on her computer screen. The rain drummed steadily against the windows of the 45th floor office at Knight Enterprises, creating a soothing rhythm that contrasted with the usual chaos of downtown Chicago. At 28 years old, she had become the backbone of the entire executive suite, known for her flawless organization and unwavering dedication. "Natalie, I need the Henderson files ready by noon," Harrison Knight said, appearing in her doorway with his characteristic quiet entrance. At 36, he commanded respect without raising his voice. His gray suit complemented his deep blue eyes, which currently showed the exhaustion of another demanding week. "Already on your desk, Mr. Knight," Natalie replied smoothly, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. "I also rescheduled your 3 o'clock meeting to Monday morning and prepared the quarterly reports you requested. The coffee you like is brewing in your private kitchen." Harrison paused, studying her with an expression that always made Natalie's heart skip a beat. In 3 years of working together, she had mastered the art of anticipating his needs before he voiced them. It was both her greatest professional achievement and her deepest personal struggle. The unexpected interruption. The afternoon brought lighter rain but heavier workload. Natalie was finalizing a presentation when her personal phone buzzed. It was Riley, her 24-year-old sister who was finishing nursing school at Northwestern University. "Hey, Nat," Riley's excited voice came through. "Remember that doctor I mentioned? Cameron Price? He got us reservations at that French place you've been dying to try. Tonight at 8. Please say you'll come." Natalie glanced at her watch. She had planned to finish some reports, but Riley had been trying to set up this meeting for weeks. Cameron was a pediatric surgeon at Children's Memorial Hospital, and from everything Riley had told her, he seemed genuinely nice. "I don't know, Riley. I have a lot of work to finish." "You always have work to finish. Come on, Nat. You haven't had a real date in over a year. Cameron is sweet, funny, and he really wants to meet you." Natalie smiled despite herself. Riley worried constantly about her older sister's non-existent social life. "Fine. But if it's awkward, I'm blaming you. Deal? I'll text you the details. Love you." The call that changed everything. 20 minutes later, Natalie's phone rang again. She assumed it was Riley with more details and answered without checking the caller ID. "Hello? Natalie? It's Cameron Price." The voice was warm and friendly. "Riley gave me your number. I hope that's okay." "Of course," Natalie said, leaning back in her chair. The office was quiet, with most employees having left early due to the weather. "Riley's been talking about you non-stop." Cameron laughed. "All good things, I hope. Listen, I'm really looking forward to tonight. Your sister has told me so much about you. The way she describes you, you sound amazing." "She tends to exaggerate," Natalie replied, feeling herself relax. There was something easy about talking to Cameron, no pressure or pretense. "I doubt that. A woman who works hard, takes care of her family, and still finds time to be kind? That's rare. You're quite the charmer, Dr. Price. Please, call me Cameron. And I'm just being honest." They talked for a few more minutes about the restaurant, their favorite foods, and Chicago's unpredictable weather. Natalie found herself laughing genuinely for the first time in days. "So, are you free tonight?" Cameron asked. Natalie looked around the empty office and smiled. "I'm free tonight, my love. I can't wait to meet you in person." What she didn't know was that Harrison had finished his conference call 5 minutes earlier and was standing in his office doorway, having come out to ask her about tomorrow's schedule. He heard every word, especially the last sentence that echoed through the quiet space. "I'm free tonight, my love. The storm brewing." The words hit Harrison like a physical blow. He stood frozen, watching Natalie smile at something Cameron said, her whole face lighting up in a way he had never seen during work hours. For 3 years, he had maintained professional distance, convincing himself that the attraction he felt was inappropriate and temporary. But hearing her speak so warmly to another man shattered that illusion completely. Harrison had built his company from nothing after his father's unexpected death. Knight Enterprises was now worth billions, and he was considered one of Chicago's most eligible bachelors. Yet none of that mattered in this moment. The only thing he could focus on was the crushing realization that he had waited too long, been too cautious, and now Natalie was slipping away. "Marina, you're still here," he said, making his presence known. Natalie spun around, her phone still pressed to her ear. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Mr. Knight. I thought you were still in your meeting." "It ended early," he said, his voice colder than he intended. "I see you're busy with personal calls." Natalie felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, Cameron. I need to go. I'll see you tonight." She ended the call quickly and stood up. "I apologize, Mr. Knight. It won't happen again." "See that it doesn't," Harrison said curtly, then turned back toward his office. Natalie stared after him, confused by his harsh tone. In 3 years, he had never spoken to her like that. She had taken maybe 5 personal calls total during work hours, and each had been brief. This reaction was completely out of character. Growing tension. The rest of the afternoon was uncomfortable. Harrison stayed in his office, and when he needed something, he used the intercom instead of coming to her desk as he usually did. His responses were clipped and formal, lacking the warmth that had developed between them over the years. At 5:30, Natalie knocked on his door. "Mr. Knight? Is there anything else you need before I leave?" "No," he said without looking up from his computer. "You can go." Natalie hesitated. "Sir, did I do something wrong? Beyond the phone call, I mean?" Harrison finally looked at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "No, Natalie. You did nothing wrong. Enjoy your evening." There was something in the way he said the last part, something that sounded almost like pain, but before Natalie could question it, he turned back to his screen. She gathered her things slowly, hoping he would say something else, but the silence stretched on. Finally, she left, feeling a strange heaviness in her chest that had nothing to do with the weather. Harrison waited until he heard the elevator doors close before he allowed himself to react. He stood and walked to the window, pressing his palm against the cold glass. Below, he could see Natalie's small blue Honda pulling out of the parking garage, heading toward a date with someone else. "I'm free tonight, my love." The words replayed in his mind, each repetition more painful than the last. Harrison Knight, who had negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching, who had rebuilt a failing company into an empire, found himself utterly defeated by 4 simple words from the woman he had fallen in love with but never had the courage to tell. The rain continued to fall on Chicago, and in his reflection in the window, Harrison barely recognized the jealous, regretful man staring back at him. He had always prided himself on his control, his logic, his ability to keep emotions separate from business. But love, he was discovering, didn't follow any rules he understood. And tomorrow, he would have to face Natalie again, pretending that hearing her plan a date with another man hadn't destroyed him, pretending that he didn't want to tell her everything he had kept hidden for 3 long years. The phone call had changed everything, but the real story was only beginning. Monday morning reckoning. The weekend had passed like a blur for Harrison Knight. He spent Saturday pacing his penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, unable to focus on the financial reports he had brought home. Sunday was worse. He canceled his golf game with his business partner and instead sat alone on his balcony, replaying that phone conversation over and over in his mind. Natalie arrived at the office Monday morning at 7:55, as punctual as always. She wore a navy blazer and white blouse, her dark hair pulled back in a professional bun. But there was something different about her today. A subtle glow, a lightness in her step that made Harrison's stomach twist with jealousy. Good morning, Mr. Knight, she said, placing his coffee on the desk with her usual efficiency. The Parker Industries meeting is at 10. I've prepared all the contracts and arranged for the conference room to be set up by 9:30. Thank you, Harrison replied stiffly, not meeting her eyes. Natalie lingered at the door. Sir, are you feeling all right? You seem tense. I'm fine. The words came out harsher than he intended. The confrontation builds throughout the morning. Harrison's mood darkened. He snapped at two junior associates during the Parker meeting, something completely unlike him. Natalie watched with growing concern, taking notes but also studying her boss with worried eyes. When the meeting ended, she followed him back to his office. Mr. Knight, please. Something is clearly wrong. In 3 years, I've never seen you like this. Harrison stood at his window, hands in his pockets, jaw clenched. How was your weekend, Natalie? The question surprised her. He never asked about her personal life. It was nice. I had dinner with Riley on Friday, and we spent Saturday helping at a community center. Why do you ask? Your date, Harrison said, finally turning to face her. How was your date on Friday? Natalie's eyes widened. I don't understand why that matters. It doesn't, he said quickly, then shook his head. That's a lie. It matters very much. Mr. Knight, I'm confused. Harrison crossed the room until he stood just inches from her. Natalie could smell his cologne, see the flecks of gold in his blue eyes, feel the heat radiating from his body. I heard you on the phone Friday, he said quietly. When you told him you were free. When you called him, my love. Natalie's cheeks flushed crimson. You were listening? I came out to ask you something and heard you talking. I should have left, but I couldn't move. I just stood there like a fool, listening to you make plans with another man. I don't see how that's any of your business, Natalie said, her voice shaking slightly with a mixture of embarrassment and something else she couldn't quite name. You're right. It's not my business, Harrison admitted. But that didn't stop me from spending the entire weekend wanting to destroy something. Wanting to find this Cameron and tell him to stay away from you. Wanting to tell you that the thought of you with someone else makes me feel like I can't breathe. The confession hung between them, heavy and electric. The truth revealed. What are you saying? Natalie whispered. Harrison ran a hand through his hair, his carefully maintained composure crumbling. I'm saying that for 3 years, I've been lying to myself. Telling myself that what I felt for you was just professional respect. That the reason I looked forward to coming to work every day was because you're an excellent assistant. That the reason I never dated anyone seriously was because I was too busy building the company. Harrison, she breathed, using his first name for the first time ever. But Friday night, when I heard you talking to him, I couldn't lie anymore. I'm in love with you, Natalie. I have been for longer than I want to admit. And I know this is wrong. I know I'm your boss, and there are rules, and this could complicate everything. But I can't pretend anymore. Natalie felt tears forming in her eyes. You can't just say things like that. Why not? It's the truth. Because, she said, her voice breaking, I've been in love with you for 2.5 years, and I convinced myself you'd never see me as anything more than your assistant. So when Riley introduced me to Cameron, I thought maybe I should try to move on. Maybe I should stop torturing myself with feelings that could never be returned. Harrison stared at her in shock. 2.5 years? Since the company anniversary party. You were giving a speech about your father and how he taught you that success meant nothing without integrity. You looked so passionate, so genuine. And I remember thinking that I was completely gone for you. The anniversary party, Harrison repeated, moving even closer. Natalie, that was when I first realized I was attracted to you. You wore a green dress, and you laughed at something one of the board members said, and I couldn't stop staring at you all night. You never said anything. Neither did you. They stood there, inches apart, 3 years of unspoken feelings crackling in the air between them. "Your date," Harrison said finally. "Cameron. Are you going to see him again?" Natalie shook her head slowly. "I told him I wasn't ready for a relationship. He was nice about it, said to call him if things changed. But they won't change, Harrison. Because I don't want to move on from you. I never did." Harrison reached up and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've wasted so much time being afraid. Afraid of crossing lines, afraid of what people would think, afraid of ruining what we had. And now? Now I don't care about any of that. I just care about you." The first kiss. Harrison cupped her face in his hands and kissed her softly. It was gentle at first, tentative, as if they were both testing whether this was real. Then Natalie's arms wrapped around his neck, and the kiss deepened, 3 years of longing pouring into that single moment. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. "We should talk about what this means," Natalie said, her forehead resting against his. "I know. There's the company policy, the power dynamic, all the complications." "I don't care about complications," Natalie said firmly. "But I need to know this is real for you. That I'm not just something you want because you couldn't have me." Harrison pulled back to look at her directly. "Natalie Brooks, you are the first thing I think about in the morning and the last thing on my mind before I sleep. You make me laugh when I'm stressed. You challenge me when I'm wrong. You see me not as Harrison Knight the billionaire, but as the man who still misses his father and doubts himself more than anyone knows. You're not something I want. You're everything I need." Fresh tears spilled down Natalie's cheeks. "I need to hear you say it again. I love you. Again. I love you, Natalie Brooks. I'm completely, hopelessly, utterly in love with you." She kissed him again, softer this time, full of promise and new beginnings, making it real. They spent the next hour talking, sitting together on the leather sofa in Harrison's office with the door locked. They discussed the complications honestly. The company had strict policies about relationships between supervisors and subordinates. If anyone found out, it could cause problems for both of them, but especially for Natalie. "I could transfer to a different department," Natalie suggested. "That way there's no direct reporting relationship." Harrison considered it. "Or I could hire a new executive assistant and move you into a project management role. You've always been overqualified for this position anyway. I love being your assistant though. Then we'll figure something else out. The point is, we'll find a way to make this work without compromising your career or your reputation." Natalie squeezed his hand. "What about outside of work? We can't exactly go on dates at the places you usually frequent. Someone would recognize you immediately. Then we'll go places where no one knows us. We'll drive to other cities for dinner. We'll stay in on weekends. Natalie, I don't need fancy restaurants or social events. I just need you." She smiled. "When did you become such a romantic?" "About 3 seconds after I fell in love with you." The secret begins. They decided to keep their relationship private for now. Not forever, but long enough to figure out the logistics and ensure Natalie's position in the company wouldn't be threatened. It meant being careful at work, maintaining professional boundaries in front of others, and stealing moments alone whenever they could. "This is going to be harder than we think," Natalie said as they prepared to leave his office and return to normal work mode. Harrison kissed her forehead. "Worth it though. Definitely worth it." For the rest of the day, they maintained their professional personas. But there were small differences. The way Harrison's hand lingered when he passed her a document. The way Natalie smiled when she brought him coffee. The electric charge in the air when they were alone in the elevator. At 6 o'clock, after everyone else had left, Harrison appeared at her desk. "Dinner tonight?" he asked. "Where?" "I know a little Italian place in Evanston. Family owned, quiet, no one from our social circles." Natalie saved her work and shut down her computer. Sounds perfect. A new beginning. The restaurant was exactly as Harrison described. Tucked away on a side street, with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. The owner, an elderly Italian woman named Rosa, greeted them warmly and showed them to a corner booth. "Your wife is beautiful," Rosa said to Harrison in heavily accented English. Before Natalie could correct her, Harrison smiled and said, "Thank you. I'm a lucky man." After Rosa left, Natalie raised an eyebrow. "Wife? Too soon?" Harrison asked with a grin. "Way too soon. But I kind of like it." They ordered wine and pasta, talking about everything except work. Harrison told her about growing up in his father's shadow, the pressure to succeed, the loneliness that came with success. Natalie shared stories about raising Riley after their parents died in a car accident when she was 21, how she had put her own dreams on hold to make sure her sister could go to college. "You're remarkable," Harrison said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "Do you know that? I'm just doing what anyone would do for family." "No. Most people would have crumbled under that kind of responsibility. You thrived. You built a life, supported your sister, and still managed to become the best at what you do." Natalie felt her eyes getting misty again. "You're going to make me cry in public. Sorry. I'll stop being honest about how amazing you are. Don't you dare stop." They stayed at the restaurant until closing, talking and laughing and discovering new things about each other. When they finally left, Harrison walked Natalie to her car in the parking lot. "I don't want this night to end," she admitted. "Then let's not end it. Come home with me." Natalie hesitated. "Harrison, I want to, but maybe we should take things slow. We just started this today." He kissed her gently. "You're right. I'm rushing. It's just that I've waited 3 years, and now that I can finally be with you, I don't want to waste another second." "We have time," Natalie assured him. "All the time in the world." "Okay. But can I see you tomorrow night? And the night after that? And possibly every night for the foreseeable future?" Natalie laughed. "Yes to all of the above." They kissed goodnight in the parking lot, neither wanting to be the first to pull away. Finally, Natalie forced herself to get in her car. "Drive safe," Harrison said. "Text me when you get home." "I will." "Good night, Harrison." "Good night, my love." The endearment made Natalie's heart soar as she drove away. In her rearview mirror, she could see Harrison standing in the parking lot, watching until her taillights disappeared around the corner. She couldn't stop smiling the entire drive home. When she walked into her apartment, Riley was studying at the kitchen table. "You're glowing," Riley observed immediately. "What happened?" Natalie sat down across from her sister. "Remember how you always said my boss had feelings for me?" Riley's eyes went wide. "No way. Natalie Brooks, spill everything right now." So Natalie did, telling her sister about the confession, the kiss, the dinner. Riley listened with growing excitement, occasionally interrupting with squeals of joy. "I knew it!" Riley exclaimed when Natalie finished. "I always knew there was something between you two. So what happens now?" "Now we figure out how to make this work," Natalie said. "It won't be easy, but I think it'll be worth it." "It will be," Riley assured her. "Nat, I've never seen you this happy." "Not in years." Natalie smiled. "I am happy. Terrified, but happy." Her phone buzzed with a text from Harrison, "Made it home. Already missing you. Sleep well, beautiful." She typed back, "Missing you too. Sweet dreams." Riley peeked over her shoulder and grinned. "Oh, you've got it bad." "I really do," Natalie admitted, hugging her phone to her chest. That night, as she lay in bed, Natalie reflected on how quickly everything had changed. One overheard phone call had shattered the careful professional distance she and Harrison had maintained. But maybe that distance had always been fragile, held together only by fear and hesitation. Now, freed from pretense, they could finally explore what had been building between them for 3 years. It wouldn't be simple. There would be challenges ahead, decisions to make, obstacles to overcome. But for the first time in a long time, Natalie felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The phone call that had sparked Harrison's jealousy had ultimately led them to this moment. And she wouldn't change a single thing. Tomorrow would bring new complications, but tonight she would simply be happy, knowing that the man she loved felt the same way about her. The storm had passed, and in its wake, something beautiful had begun to bloom, the delicate balance. 3 weeks into their secret relationship, Natalie and Harrison had developed an intricate dance of professionalism by day and romance by night. At the office, she still called him Mr. Knight, still maintained appropriate distance, still acted as the perfect executive assistant. But the moment they were alone, everything changed. "You know what's driving me crazy?" Harrison said one evening as they sat in his penthouse, Chinese takeout containers spread across his coffee table. "Watching other men flirt with you at meetings and not being able to do anything about it." Natalie laughed, stealing a piece of Kung Pao chicken from his container. "No one flirts with me at meetings. James from accounting definitely flirts with you. And that new guy in marketing, what's his name? Derek. And he's just friendly." "He's interested," Harrison insisted. "I can tell." "Are you jealous, Mr. Knight?" "Extremely. It's very unprofessional of me." Natalie kissed him softly. "Good thing we're not at the office then." The routine worked for a while. They would meet at his place or hers, alternating to avoid suspicion. On weekends, they would drive to neighboring towns, exploring small restaurants and shops where no one knew Chicago's billionaire CEO. Harrison discovered that he loved these simple outings more than any of the lavish social events he usually attended. "I feel like a normal person with you," he told Natalie one Saturday as they walked through a farmer's market in a suburb an hour outside Chicago. "Not Harrison Knight, CEO. Just Harrison. That's who I fell in love with," Natalie said, squeezing his hand. "Just Harrison. Meeting the family." A month into their relationship, Riley insisted on having dinner with Harrison. Natalie tried to postpone it, nervous about mixing her personal and professional worlds, but Riley was persistent. "He's important to you, which makes him important to me," Riley argued. "Besides, I want to make sure he's good enough for my big sister." So on a Sunday evening, Harrison found himself sitting in Natalie and Riley's modest apartment, feeling more nervous than he did before any business presentation. "Mr. Knight," Riley said, shaking his hand formally before breaking into a grin. "I'm kidding. Call me Riley. And thank you for making my sister happier than I've seen her in years." Dinner was simple, pasta that Natalie made while Harrison helped Riley set the table. There was something surreal about the CEO of a billion-dollar company folding napkins in their tiny kitchen, but he seemed completely at ease. "So Harrison," Riley said once they were eating, "what are your intentions with my sister?" "Riley." Natalie protested. "It's okay," Harrison said, smiling. "Your sister is the most important person in my life. My intention is to make her happy for as long as she'll let me." Riley studied him for a moment, then nodded approvingly. "Good answer. You can stay." As the evening progressed, Harrison found himself genuinely enjoying Riley's company. She was funny and direct, with none of the pretense he encountered in his usual social circles. She told embarrassing stories about Natalie's teenage years, making Harrison laugh harder than he had in months. "I like him," Riley declared after Harrison left. "He looks at you like you hung the moon." "You think so?" Natalie asked, even though she could see it herself. "I know so. Don't let this one go, Nat." "I don't plan to." The ex-wife returns. Everything changed on a Tuesday afternoon when Harrison's assistant buzzed his office. "Mr. Knight, there's a Lauren Hutchinson here to see you. She says it's urgent." Harrison felt his blood run cold. Lauren was his ex-wife, the woman he had divorced 3 years ago after a brief, disastrous marriage. She had moved to New York after the divorce, and they hadn't spoken since the papers were finalized. "Send her in," he said, his voice tight. Natalie looked up from her desk as a stunning blonde woman in designer clothes walked past. She caught Harrison's eye through the glass wall of his office, and something in his expression made her stomach drop. Lauren Hutchinson was everything Natalie wasn't. Tall, glamorous, from old Chicago money. She glided into Harrison's office like she owned it, and through the glass, Natalie could see them talking. She tried to focus on her work, but her eyes kept drifting to the office. Harrison looked tense, and Lauren seemed to be pleading with him about something. At one point, Lauren reached across the desk to touch his hand, and Natalie felt a sharp stab of jealousy. The meeting lasted an hour. When Lauren finally left, she walked past Natalie's desk without a glance, leaving a cloud of expensive perfume in her wake. Natalie waited a few minutes before going to Harrison's office. "Who was that?" she asked, trying to keep her voice casual. Harrison looked exhausted. "My ex-wife." "Oh." Natalie felt her stomach twist. What did she want? To tell me she made a mistake. That leaving me was the biggest regret of her life. Harrison rubbed his temples. She wants to try again. The words hung in the air between them. Natalie felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "What did you tell her?" she whispered. Harrison stood and crossed to her, taking her hands in his. "I told her I'm in love with someone else. That I've moved on and I'm happier than I've ever been." Relief flooded through Natalie. "You did?" "Of course I did. Natalie, look at me." He waited until her eyes met his. "Lauren is my past. A past I'm not interested in revisiting. You are my present and, if you'll have me, my future." "I was so scared," Natalie admitted. "She's so beautiful and sophisticated, and she's from your world. She's also manipulative and shallow, 2 things I didn't realize until after we were married. You, on the other hand, are genuine and kind and everything I never knew I needed." Harrison pulled her close. "Please don't doubt this. Don't doubt us." Natalie buried her face in his chest. "I'm sorry. I just saw her, and all my insecurities came flooding back." "Your insecurities are groundless. You're it for me, Natalie Brooks. There's no one else." The public revelation. Lauren's visit had consequences neither of them anticipated. 2 days later, Harrison received a call from the head of Human Resources. "Mr. Knight, we need to discuss something delicate," Patricia Chen said, her voice carefully neutral. "There's been a complaint filed about an inappropriate relationship between you and your executive assistant." Harrison's jaw clenched. "Filed by whom?" "That's confidential. But I need to ask you directly. Is there a personal relationship between you and Ms. Brooks?" Harrison thought about lying, about protecting Natalie, but he knew the truth would come out eventually. "Yes. We're in a relationship." Patricia sighed. "You understand this violates company policy." "I do. What are my options?" "Ms. Brooks needs to be transferred out of your direct supervision. Either to another department or another supervisor. And there will need to be a formal review to ensure there was no coercion or abuse of power." "There wasn't," Harrison said firmly. "Our relationship is completely consensual and began outside of work." "I believe you, but we need to follow protocol. I'll need to speak with Ms. Brooks as well." After the call ended, Harrison sat in his office, furious. He had no doubt who had filed the complaint. Lauren had always been vindictive when she didn't get her way. He called Natalie into his office and explained the situation. She took it better than he expected. I knew we couldn't keep it secret forever, she said calmly. What happens now? You'll be transferred. Patricia suggested a project management position in the development department. It's actually a promotion, better pay, more responsibilities. But I won't be working with you. No, Harrison admitted. But we won't have to hide anymore either. No more pretending at the office. No more worrying about who sees us together. Natalie considered this. There's going to be gossip. People will say I got the promotion because of our relationship. Let them talk. Anyone who knows you knows you're qualified for that position and then some. And Natalie, he took her hands, I'm tired of hiding. I want to be able to take you to company events as my date. I want people to know you're mine. Yours, huh? She smiled despite the situation. If you want to be. I do want to be. But Harrison, what about your ex-wife? Won't this just make her angrier? I don't care what Lauren thinks or feels. She lost the right to have opinions about my life when she cheated on me and walked away. Natalie's eyes widened. She cheated on you? With my former business partner. That's why I divorced her. I never told anyone the real reason because I was embarrassed, but I should have told you. Oh, Harrison. Natalie hugged him tight. I'm so sorry. Don't be. If she hadn't left, I would never have realized what real love feels like. I would never have found you. The new beginning. The transition took 2 weeks. Natalie moved to her new office in the development department, where she quickly impressed everyone with her organizational skills and innovative ideas. Harrison hired a new assistant, an efficient middle-aged woman named Barbara who reminded him of his grandmother. She's no Natalie Brooks, Barbara said on her 3rd day, making Harrison laugh. No one is. With Natalie no longer his direct report, they could finally be open about their relationship. The gossip lasted about a week before dying down, especially after people saw how qualified Natalie was for her new role. Harrison took her to the company's annual gala, introducing her proudly to everyone as his girlfriend. They danced under the chandeliers, and for the first time, he could hold her close in public without worrying about crossing any lines. Happy? He asked as they swayed to the music. Incredibly, Natalie replied. Although I miss bringing you coffee every morning. You can still bring me coffee. Just as my girlfriend instead of my assistant. Deal. 6 months later. Natalie Brooks, you have made me happier in the past 6 months than I've been in my entire life, Harrison said, getting down on one knee in his penthouse overlooking the Chicago skyline. Natalie gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. You make me laugh. You challenge me. You love me for who I am, not what I have. You've shown me what partnership really means. Harrison opened a small velvet box, revealing a stunning diamond ring. Will you marry me? Yes. Natalie exclaimed, tears streaming down her face. Yes, absolutely yes. Harrison slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her as the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Riley burst out from the bedroom where she had been hiding with a camera, squealing with excitement. I got it all on video. You knew? Natalie laughed through her tears. Of course I knew. He asked my permission 3 weeks ago. Harrison pulled both women into a hug. Thank you for trusting me with your sister, he said to Riley. Thank you for loving her the way she deserves, Riley replied. That night, surrounded by takeout containers and wedding magazines that Riley had brought, the 3 of them planned the future. It would be a simple ceremony, they decided. Family and close friends only. Nothing ostentatious or showy. I just want to marry you, Harrison said, kissing Natalie's temple. Everything else is just details. I love you, Natalie said, for the 1000th time but meaning it more with each repetition. I love you more. Impossible. Riley rolled her eyes affectionately. You two are disgustingly cute. As Natalie curled up against Harrison on the couch, she thought about how far they had come from that rainy Friday afternoon when he had overheard her phone call. His jealousy had broken down the walls between them, forcing them both to confront feelings they had been suppressing for years. "What are you thinking about?" Harrison asked, running his fingers through her hair. "That phone call. The one that started all of this." Harrison smiled. "Best eavesdropping I've ever done. I'm glad you were jealous. I'm glad you gave me a reason to be." "I love our story," Natalie said softly. "Me too. But I love our future even more." Outside the window, Chicago glittered with a million lights, but inside, wrapped in each other's arms, Harrison and Natalie had found something far more precious. They had found each other. The phone call that had sparked everything seemed like a lifetime ago, yet it had been less than a year. In that time, they had gone from boss and assistant to lovers to partners to, soon, husband and wife. It hadn't been easy. There had been obstacles, doubts, complications. But they had faced everything together, and that had made all the difference. "Thank you," Harrison whispered. "For what?" "For being free that night. For giving me the push I needed to finally tell you how I felt." Natalie laughed. "Thank you for being jealous enough to admit it." "Always and forever," he promised. "Always and forever," she echoed. And as Riley snapped one more photo of them together, capturing their happiness for all time, Natalie knew that this was just the beginning of their love story. The best chapters were still to come. The millionaire boss had lost his temper over a phone call, but in doing so, he had gained everything that truly mattered. And the assistant who had whispered, "I'm free tonight, my love," to someone else had ended up exactly where she belonged, in the arms of the man who truly owned her heart. Their love story had started with jealousy and secrets, but it would continue with honesty, partnership, and a love that would last forever.